In this video, I'm going to show you how to make bobbin tensioners for rod building. These tensioners are a little different than a typical bobbin tensioner that you would use for tying flies because they're really short, and they also can be squeezed at the top, which opens a gap to allow the bobbin to fit into the tensioner. I can't take full credit for this design. I got a lot of useful information from a video made by Haru 834, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I will leave a link to his video in the description of this video. It was his method that I modified to suit my needs. Mine is different because it is a cross-locking design where you squeeze the top to open it for bobbin installation, and mine also uses 12mm beads that fit into the through hole in the bobbin, and mine is also much shorter because I'm not using it for fly tying. I'm using it to hold bobbins of thread for trim bands, inlays, and decorative wraps when you're building fishing rods. A typical fly tying bobbin is longer than what I'd like to use for rod building, so I looked around for a design that I could modify when I came across the video from Haru 834. You should definitely check his YouTube channel out because he has a lot of great DIY fishing related videos. I subscribed to his channel immediately after seeing his content. You can use these little bobbin winding machines to transfer thread from a spool onto a bobbin. They're surprisingly inexpensive and can be found in stores like Walmart, sewing supply stores, Amazon, and many other online retailers. I actually found this one in a thrift store for less than $2, but even new they're usually somewhere between $10 and $20. I'm using 39 thousandths of an inch or just under 1mm spring steel music wire to make these bobbin tensioners. You could use larger wire if you want, but I wouldn't go any smaller than this. You can find this wire in a lot of hobby stores, stores that sell or service musical instruments, and Amazon. I'm also using a pair of pliers that is made for bending wire into loops or rings. These can be found in a lot of hobby stores that sell things for making jewelry. I'm also using 12mm acrylic beads that can be found in the jewelry making section of hobby stores. I'm using a ruler and a Sharpie pen, some super glue and baking soda, and as an option you can also use a small split ring. Here's a schematic for laying out your bobbin tensioner that you might find handy to have with you as you're making yours. You can print that out, just take a screenshot of it or something and print it out to reference later. To start out, we're going to cut a piece of wire to 20 centimeters long. Then we're going to straighten it up a little. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. Now we'll mark the center at 10 centimeters and bend a loop into the wire. And now I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers to hold the loop while I bend the wire to approximately 90 degrees from the loop. And now I'll measure out 12mm from the flat of the loop and mark the leg and bend it to an angle similar to the one in the schematic. Now I'll repeat that process on the opposite leg. If you want to install a split ring in the middle of the bobbin tensioner, now is the easiest time to do that. Just pinch the legs together and slide the split ring into place. This design will work fine without one, but I like having the split ring to keep the thread running in the center of the tensioner from the halfway point of the length of it through the top of the loop. Now I'm going to measure 22mm, mark it, and bend the leg so that it runs straight down, and I'll repeat that process on the opposite leg. Now I'm going to measure 6mm from the bend we just made and mark and bend the leg so that it runs roughly parallel to the loop at the top. I'll repeat that process on the opposite leg as well. Now I'm going to measure 3mm from the previous bend we made and bend the wire so that it runs straight down. I'll repeat that process on the opposite leg too. Now I'll put the beads on and mark the wire at the bottom and cut each leg a little shorter than that mark so that the wire doesn't stick out of the bottom of the bead. I'll be using super glue and baking soda to attach the beads to the wire. The baking soda solidifies the super glue almost instantly, and it acts as a filler material as well. If you get too much on the bead, you can file or sand it down. I wouldn't put too much super glue in before you start adding a little baking soda. That way it doesn't run out the opposite end of the hole and get all over the wire. Just do a little at a time and keep adding baking soda to solidify it, and you'll be able to fill in the holes pretty well using that method. And that's pretty much all there is to it. You may need to manipulate the wire a little bit as you go to keep everything looking even, but that's about the whole process. Here's my fly tying bobbin holder compared to my rod building bobbin tensioner. The fly tying bobbin holder is approximately twice as long and much more cumbersome to work with than these bobbin tensioners when you're using them for fishing rod work. They're inexpensive to make and I find them useful. I would also recommend that you give them a shot to see if you like them too. That's all I have for now. I'll talk to y'all later.